This hour, Accra High Court sets October 17 to rule on an application to halt a criminal trial of former Signals Bureau Director Adu-Boahen and 3 others.
Also this hour, utility service providers justify what many describe as the highest tariff adjustment request ever proposed to the PURC.
Later on, we'll find out what should happen to more than 20 teachers and invigilators who've been found culpable by the GES in exam malpractice in the ongoing WASI.
It's News Central live on TV3. I'm Kevin Yamano.
And I am Mawina Egbeta. The bulletin starts right now.
Now, the Accra High Court has set October 17th to rule on an application to halt the criminal trial of former Signals Bureau Director Adu-Boahen and 3 others. Lawyers of the embattled ex-Signals Bureau chief, led by Samuel Atachian, moved the application to stay proceedings pending the determination of the appeal of the High Court's decision. Now, the court, presided over by Justice Eugene Nyante, earlier dismissed an application by Adu-Boahen's lawyers for further disclosures of documents citing irrelevance and non-possession of the requested documents by the prosecution. Adu-Boahen, his wife and 2 others are facing 11 charges, including stealing, money laundering of 49.1 million cedis in state funds, willfully causing financial loss to the state, and abuse of public office. Lord Eduasari sat through hearings today. He's joining us with the very latest on this matter. Lord, what else can you report from court today?
The trial hearing of the former Signals Bureau chief, his lead counsel, Samuel Atachian, moved the application to stay proceedings, citing his appeal at the Court of Appeal. And I'd like to remind us that at the last time they were in court, when the presiding judge dismissed their application for the prosecution to disclose, to give them certain disclosures, they indicated that the presiding judge was trying to block access to certain exculpatory evidence or some documents that they felt would help their case. So they went to the Court of Appeal to appeal that High Court decision. So in court today, they wanted the High Court to suspend the sitting or the hearing until the Court of Appeal decides on that matter. But the prosecution, led by the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Remsai, opposed this motion, indicating that nothing of substance had been raised by the lawyer for Adu-Boahen. He indicated that although the lawyer for Adu-Boahen, which Samuel Atachian, believed that the evidence or the matters that they wanted the prosecution to supply them with was exculpatory, from his arguments, it was evident that it was not relevant. And again, the prosecution had also filed all the documents that the defense lawyers would need in the case. And so he urged the courts to dismiss that application to stay proceedings. Now, at that point, there was also an issue where Dr. Justice Remsai sort of reported Samuel Atachian of taking the matter to the media and making the case to sort of put pressure on the case. Because you remember that somewhere last month, the latter part of the month really, there were reports of the prosecution withholding some evidence, which was essentially slowing the case down and then damaging that case, for which reason the Deputy Attorney General came to the fore to make matters clear that as far as the case was concerned, they had filed all the necessary documents that would help the case to proceed. At that point, the presiding judge, Justice Eugene Nyante, indicated that no one can pressure him or his courts his close friends know that, his childhood friends know that, anybody who comes to the courts know that. So it's not as if the AG makes a case and then he sides with him in order to block the evidence which will help the accused case. Now,
I see, Lord, you're going to have to speak up for us, but in terms of proceedings and prosecution or movement or progress of the trial, what does today's hearing mean?
Well, so today, essentially, the defense lawyers were trying to get the courts to halt the trial until the Court of Appeal decides on their application or their appeal of the High Court decision at the Court of Appeal. So on October 17, when the court resumes the sitting, the presiding judge will make a ruling on whether this application to state proceedings should stand. But then again, the issue also came out that the Deputy Attorney General tried to push for a speedy trial. He indicated that he actually prayed for the court to hear the case on a daily basis. We know that there's a legal vacation, and so the presiding judge indicated that that cannot be the case because there's a number of cause lists or cases that his court is hearing. So what he can do is that whenever the case is called, they'll spend the whole day to make sure they elaborate and then finish up the case for the day until the next hearing. But he cannot give them a daily hearing of the case because of how the case have been lumped up during this legal vacation. And so, Kemini, when the case is resumed on October 17, the High Court judge will make a decision on that prayer by the lawyer for the accused person, Samuel Atacha, on whether this case should be halted pending the Court of Appeal decision.
Very well, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much, Lord, for talking to us. Lord Idwasare is our court correspondent who's just been giving us the latest as far as the progress of the trial against former Signals Bureau boss Kwabena Adu-Boahen is concerned. October 17, the court will take its decision on, progress of the trial, and we'll let you know.
Let's bring you some other stories, because following ECG's proposal to increase its distribution service charge by 225%, public reaction has been swift and intense. Many Ghanaians are calling on the company to first review how it manages losses, collects payment, and controls costs rather than immediately passing the burden onto consumers. ECG insists the increase is necessary due to rising costs, outstanding debt, and significant power losses, among others. Nearly 28% of electricity, we know, is lost to theft, illegal connections, and faulty meters. The company also plans major infrastructure investment over the next 5 years, totaling around $1.6 billion, including prepaid meter substations, grid reliability upgrades, and then support for electric vehicles. Now, while ECG frames the increase as essential for keeping the lights on and modernizing the grid, many Ghanaians remain very skeptical, and this debate raises a pressing question whether or not can there be utility balance and then financial sustainability with affordable electricity for ordinary citizens, or the big question, will consumers continue to shoulder the cost of all of these inefficiencies? Let's get a bit more details and look at what it is that we know are the proposals as have come forth from ECG and what they are seeking to look at. So these tariff increments they are asking for is expected to span between 2025 and then 2030, because after a number of years, there are major tariff reviews undertaken by the PURC, and you may have heard us connect with George yesterday as a number of the utility service providers were appearing before the PURC and were tabling what they believe is the appropriate adjustments that needs to be made so they can continue to remain viable and modernize in terms of the delivery for the ordinary Ghanaian. Here's what ECG is asking for, as we know. And so we know that, for one, they are asking for an increase from 19 pesos per kilowatt hour to 61 pesos per kilowatt hour and this has to do with distribution, amongst many other things. And this is the one demand they are making. We know as well the reasons they've been given for this is rising costs in terms of a lot of things, operations and the others. That's one of the many reasons why they are demanding this 225% increase. Then they have debts of their own as well. The Electricity Company of Ghana, they have debts they're supposed to be settling, a part of which was factored into the current tariffs we're paying for electricity by the PURC, because there was roughly $1 billion cedis in debt. And so when the cedi appreciated, that was factored in, reason why we didn't see any reduction in tariffs. But they still say there are debts owed, and why we need to see that increase in terms of the tariff adjustments for them as well. Then there is a 28% in terms of losses, which I've mentioned to you, result in thefts, distribution losses, amongst many other things. Then they plan to engage in projects costing $1.6 billion, and it will involve meter substations and then electric vehicle support as well. And this is what we know, but let's get a bit more in terms of what the past trend is, because yesterday I was making the point that, look, more often than not, we see these utility service providers at these major tariff review conversations table huge numbers, and yet doesn't look like PURC granted to them. This was in 2022. ECG asked for 148% increase in terms of tariff adjustment. The PURC approved 27.15% for them in 2022. And so it suggests that if this is anything to go by, 225 might not be what is given to them, but we cannot say that conclusively. I need to state that point. But there's been a number of reactions as well from Ghanaians who we've been speaking to on this latest proposal by ECG. Here's what some of you have been telling us from the streets of the capital.
Ghana Water, almost services here poor. And so almost increasing tariffs, say consumers no, how will their services be? Will it be effective than before? Also, we meet a problem. Ubedi hun konyabasa omumbeye. And Ghana Water so attach a pipe baby. Ufre omwa. Water no waste kogotemu. Now so say omumbe taking agency. And now be a repair we no omunye. Tama omupe na umbeye. Intimi ami hu say here, so we increase the tariffs.
We wish, as a citizen, for now, if they hold on for now for us, it will help us. For me, I buy, let me say, 50 cedis prepaid. It won't take me to a week, and the 50 cedis get finished. If I want to use a 50 cedi prepaid, I have to off everything in my room, especially when I'm coming to work. I have to off everything before the 50 cedis can take me to a week. And then as for the Ghana Waterways, if this burden come to add up to us, then it seems like the people on the top are not helping us at all. So we are begging the government. The way they are doing it, they should slow down for us, please. We are begging the government.
Sometimes with the light, if you buy, doesn't keep long. Yesterday like this, we are having this thing. I don't know, they call it doom so. The on it and the on light and off it and on the light. If at the end, no, like 30 minutes and they off it, when they on it back, you see that this thing, the currents, you know, the prepaid, it has the amount you are having on it to reduce. Yeah. So pay more there.
And those are some views from a number of you as well who will be expected to pay these tariff increases when they come on board by the Electricity Company of Ghana, and as well as the Ghana Water Company Limited. Let's get on to the phone lines right now. Hatcher Derek is a senior research and policy analyst at the Institute for Energy Security. A speaker slot right now. Derek, I appreciate you speaking to us. Nobody is ever interested in tariffs being increased, but 225% is what ECG is demanding, justified based on where you sit and all of the operational difficulties which have been recorded in the past.
My brother, good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. Truly, this is not justifiable. Ghanaians don't deserve to pay 225 percentage as proposed by ECG, because ECG basically has not been able to provide any sufficient evidence on how their past investments have been able to improve any form of service delivery. They've not been able to outline any sort of clear-cut efficiency measures that will be able to target loss reductions, or let me say some procurement savings, or even some sort of performance contracts where if you are not able to do this, then somebody must be penalized for this. All these things have not been done. And so you cannot just ask consumers to bear this kind of a steep cost increase within this shortest time without any form of guaranteed improved service delivery. These are not good. And then the time and the period for it is not quite conducive. It will be a cost to businesses, and households will suffer in the long run.
But there is that concern, though, that the energy sector is burdened, and that stems largely from ECG and its operations. Yes, you make the point that they haven't been able to demonstrate how well their investment in the past has yielded results, amongst many other things, and whether or not persons are being penalized. But they say they need this to be able to clear debt and as well invest to ensure that the grid is maintained and modernized. That certainly should be of interest to every Ghanaian if they want to see the lights being kept on.
Exactly so. So all of us are concerned about what we can be able to get power for. The power must come at all costs, but there must be a way where to be able to ensure that their revenue collection is commensurable with their performances. And so you cannot do an investment where you know that this is a capital expenditure investment, and then those capital expenditure investments is supposed to pay back for itself. Like the project life cycle is supposed to pay back for itself. So what measures did you put in place to be able to arrive at those projects? Now, they are citing completed projects. They are also citing projects that they need to undertake, and then they are looking for urgent amount of money, close to 607 billion Ghana cedis. What are the status of all these projects? These projects, are they audited? Has there been an independent verification of the project? What is the status of this project? And then how can they ensure that in the long run, efficiency measures can be improved? Because that is the basic bone of contention. If you cannot improve your efficiency, you don't expect consumers to continue to pay an increased tariff for your inefficiency. That will be insensitive to Ghanaians.
To be fair to ECG, in this part of the year, at least for the few observations that have come forth following the release of the cash waterfall mechanism report, it does appear they've been complying and following through in allowing that revenue is evenly distributed according to that cash waterfall mechanism. What is your expectation of ECG, even as you make the point strongly that they cannot be given a 225 percentage point increase in terms of tariff? How do they shore up in terms of all of these investment plans they have, and as well clearing the debts on their books?
All right, and so that was a good thing because that's what we've always been asking for. ECG basically has been having a low revenue mobilization just because people are bypassing the system. They themselves have not been able to put measures in place that will ensure that they are able to rake in the needed revenue. And so when they decided to go on a nationwide tour, visit houses, homes, businesses, ensure that those who are bypassing the system are doing things that are compliant with what they are expected, what is expected of them, we've seen the results. The results was that they've been able to comply with the cash waterfall mechanism for the past few months, and that is also what has kept our lights on for the past year. That is a good thing. But what are you also doing to ensure that the metering system is more enhanced? Your technical losses that you've been experiencing for the past years, that has been ranging around 30% or 28%, that is quite huge. And so what measures are you putting in place such that these technical losses can be reduced through some sort of targeted investment, especially in places that are overloaded with transformers or aged infrastructure and co. When you're able to do these things and Ghanaians know that it is reflective or you give yourself a timeline that maybe within these 2 years or the next 3 years, I want to reduce technical and commercial losses by 50%. So even if anything, it should be around 15%. Ghanaians will now buy with you, and this performance contract can be held accountable so that Ghanaians know that what they are paying for will translate to something better. Other than that, you cannot just overburden consumers at this period of time.
Hacha, we'll leave it here. Thank you very much. That's Hacha Derek, is with the IES, a senior researcher there, speaking to us this afternoon. And we'll get a bit more from him and then the Electricity Company of Ghana a lot later, because we know as well that PURC is expected to listen in and then decide on whether or not they are going to grant that tariff increase and by how much. But let's move away from there, because more than 20 teachers and invigilators have been found culpable by the Ghana Education Service to be involved in examination malpractices in the ongoing WASI exams. The Ghana Education Service says these culprits, after investigation by the end of this month, could face possible dismissal. Public Relations Officer of GES, Daniel Afenyi, spoke exclusively with the Labour Affairs correspondent, Daniel Opoku.
The ongoing WASI exams has been hit by fresh allegations of malpractice. According to the Ghana Education Service, some teachers and invigilators allegedly accepted bribes ranging from 60 to 200 cedis daily to compromise the integrity of the exams. The GES says these actions occurred at various examination centers across the country, with some schools reportedly facilitating the malpractices. As investigations continue, the GES says anyone found guilty will be dismissed by September 30.
By the close of the WASI, so the WASI is ongoing, and we are getting the report as and when issues of such nature come up. So we are monitoring the WASI. It is still ongoing. We are hopeful that by the end of the month it would have been done. So as and when we record such cases, we put it under our radar. We invite the necessary people we have to invite, investigate them, and so by the end of the WASI, we expect that at least the first batch of the investigations would have been concluded, and so decisions could have been made. 60 Ghana cedis a day, some of them 100 cedis, some of them 200 cedis. I mean, taking all forms of money. No, for a day. So the invigilator or the supervisor will take just 60 cedis or 100 cedis and then facilitate the cheating for the day.
The General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Thomas Tanko Musa, says the union is deeply concerned about the allegations and the impact they could have on the image of the teaching profession.
Complaints, when they come, they must be investigated. Yes, so that's what I'm saying. Let us all stay out of any temptations that will come our way. And we should not allow ourselves, or don't allow anybody to use your hand to catch a snake. Don't allow that. Don't allow anybody entice you or use your hand to catch a snake, which will lead you into trouble. Snake is poisonous.
The GES is urging BEC candidates and their parents to remain calm as they review their biodata on the placement portal. It says no changes have been made to school placement.
If you find any change in the choices that you have made, it is likely human. So it was at one point in the process that one human made a change along the line and not from the system.
The GES says it remains committed to ensuring transparency and fairness in Ghana's examination processes and will not hesitate to sanction anyone who undermines its credibility.
Oh, let's get a bit more on exam malpractice, because that continues to be one of the biggest banes in terms of all of the exams written in the country. I'll speak to the executive director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, right now, because his group, the Africa Education Watch, they've been heavily focused on exam malpractice out of a lot of the things they do, and it's become a very topical subject in the last few weeks since the completion of the BEC. Now we understand the WASI has started, and up to 20 individuals already picked up over exam malpractice. Mr. Kofi Asare, as always, I appreciate you speaking to us. Where do we begin to even start this conversation? Because I know we've spoken to you a number of times about exam malpractice, and yet it just does not go away.
Good afternoon to your audience. My organization has issued a statement this afternoon calling on the Ministry of Education to establish a committee to holistically look at the issue of examination malpractice in our education sector, look at the dynamics, the drivers, and make recommendations for systemic reforms leading to the restoration of integrity and assurance of fairness in our external assessment system. It is important to appreciate that we are where we are today, and we keep having this conversation every day, BC and WASI, because when malpractice incidents occur, the Ghana Education Service treats it as an incident. An incidental response will focus on offering sanctions on corporates, and that's it, ends there. So we've not had systemic reforms, aimed at addressing the issue from the root cause. We haven't seen that. And until we do that, we virtually will be managing the problem through managing its symptoms. And that is why it's important for us to sit down, reflect, and inquire deeply, undertake a surgical knife inquiry into the underpinnings of examination malpractice,
right?
And then tackle the bull by the horn.
Let me try and see if we can begin that conversation here this afternoon, because, like you mentioned, this is a subject that we've had to deal with. What is this driving force behind exam malpractice? Because it continues to come up every now and then, and you're saying we need to look at the root cause. What, in your estimation, could be that root cause?
One of the root causes is the key performance indicators for teachers and education directors. In Ghana, the key performance indicator enshrined in the performance contract of a teacher or head teacher is BCE pass rate. And so you have a percentage pass rate you must achieve in the core, in the four core, in maths, in English, in social studies, and in science. Now, if your students do not meet that level of attainment, you are seen to be non-performing. Okay. Now, we all know the resource constraints in our education system. Even in school, even in the STEM basic school in East Legon here, there are no textbooks. I won't go far. Not a single textbook. Yeah. That big STEM basic school in East Legon here. So if you have such KPIs and there are resource deficits, there is the likelihood of teachers, head teachers, negatively innovating to churn out results to meet their key performance indicators, because that is how their performance is gauged. They report to CISO, who also reports to the district director. The district director also has KPIs. The KPIs all linked to BC pass rate. So that is how come since 2018, we've seen an escalation. I'm not saying examination malpractice started in 2018.
An escalation.
We've seen an escalation to a level where at BC and WASI, it has become a subculture drifting towards the level of a culture. If you look at WASI, same. By 2023, we're doing a malpractice rate of 10%. It was 0.3 or something by 2018. So we are flying because the same KPIs exist in secondary schools. We believe that if we continue to look at the incidents, find the culprit and punish them, that is good, but that is short-termist. It won't solve the problem. It's only a symptomatic response. It is an incidental response. So let's delve into the dynamics. Let's delve into the drivers. What are the anchors? What are the drivers? And how can we change the incentives, so that we can see a future without examination malpractice and fraud. But as things stand now, if we continue to demand accountability for teachers and district directors to BC pass rate and WASI pass rate, given the educational inputs there, I'm telling you that they will continue. Many of them who are not, who are not too disciplined, for want of a better word, will continue, to do negative things and produce the results to please their masters. That's where we find ourselves.
Just quickly on anybody who's watching us and wondering why this conversation about exam malpractice, who does it affect at all? You've done the work enough to know the extent to which malpractice today could have ripple effects on the future of not just the candidate, but possibly the nation. Walk us through that and why this is an important conversation we need to be having now.
I have many students. I've seen about 6 students in the past 5 years who approached me that they wanted to go to nursing training college. They came with medical school results. I mean, A. Okay? And then they wanted me to help them to go to nursing training college. So when I inquired, I realized that the results were not for them. It was results procured through examination malpractice. So they knew that they couldn't go to university, so they wanted to go to nursing training college. In those days, nursing training colleges were not even degree awarding, 2018, 2019, 2020. Many of them were diploma awarding institutions. So if such people, someone who doesn't own the result, is able to get into the nursing profession and become a nurse, you can imagine what will happen to you when you go and meet the person. Because the person is a semi-literate. The person doesn't possess the skill or the competencies that they profess to possess by virtue of the result. They go to the nursing school, they will go and cheat. They will go and cheat. So they will cheat their way through society. And they started cheating from BEC level. That's how serious it is. Everyone is, at the mercy of such a culture if we don't come together and stop it. That is why it's important for the Ministry of Education to see this as a systemic problem and not just an incident that occurs in a particular school for which you think people must be dismissed. Yes, they must be dismissed, but let's prefer far-reaching system reforming measures so that we are able to build a system that has more integrity and assurance of fairness.
As always, I appreciate you speaking to us. That's Kofi Asare, is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, speaking to us this afternoon on the very latest having to do with exam malpractice and what must be done. They say there needs to be a holistic review of everything education in terms of exam malpractice championed by the Ghana Education Service. And most certainly, I will follow that and bring you details of it.
Now, stigma and lack of improved awareness remains the 2 major challenges affecting efforts by the Ghana Health Service in the management of Mpox disease outbreak in the country. In a few weeks, the country is expecting the arrival of some 33,600 vaccines, which the service is anticipating will break the source of infection and transmission of the virus, as current case count stands at 494. Now, the Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Franklin Adu-Boahen, who speaks exclusively to TV3, noted that the service is hopeful of a decline in cases soon.
As a service, I think that we are trying to expand or improve on our awareness creation. We realize that we've gotten some challenges in terms of concentrating or heighten our awareness. But I need to state that there are parts of Ghana that we have very high awareness than maybe in Accra. That we go to maybe Western region, parts of Takwa, Nsiawe, Wasa, Memphis. Those places realize that we are really much more driven to the communities. Accra, we are not hearing much of it. So one of the things that we also intend doing is to, as I said, heighten our awareness. And then the next few, I would say maybe weeks, we will get some vaccines. It's not a lot, but what is going to help us do is that we're going to target some particular hotspots. So most of the vaccines is going to go to Western region, and particular some districts that we get more of the cases. The idea is that when we are able to break the source of the infection, then that can be helping us break the transmission, and then so the powerhouse is not cut off, and then to minimize the rate of infection across the country. If you look at the strategy for the vaccines, you're supposed to give it to, let's say, health workers, because they are at risk. And if you look at the WHO prescription, it's also saying that give it to contacts of cases. You understand? And what we're hoping to do is to get the right contacts. You understand? If you don't get the right contacts and you give it, then you're not going to get the effect. So thankfully, we built a lot of rapport, particularly in Western region, which is our hotspot. So we are able to identify a number that we are likely to get the vaccines to. And we are thinking that when we get that vaccine to them, it will cut the source.
Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, Benjamin Koshi, had denied claims that the Minister for Foreign Affairs in South Africa is coming to Ghana to help solve the issues around DSTV subscription fees. His comments follow unconfirmed claims in the media that South Africa has activated diplomatic efforts to resolve the standoff between Ghana's Ministry of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations and MultiChoice Ghana, operators of DSTV. Now, speaking to TV3, Koshi has dispelled rumors of reprisal attacks on Ghanaian businesses in South Africa.
Confidently say to you that it's not true. The media reports that have indicated that the Foreign Affairs Minister from South Africa is coming to Ghana because of the MultiChoice brouhaha. It's not true. There is no Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs from South Africa in Ghana as we speak to lead any negotiations. No. The Honorable Lanola, who is the Foreign Affairs Minister from South Africa, wanted to have a bilateral meeting with his counterpart, the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He had to discuss other issues. Of course, the issue of MultiChoice would definitely have come up, but the meeting was not able to materialize because the Honorable Foreign Affairs Minister had to travel to Ethiopia with the Vice President. So that meeting couldn't come on, and we're trying to set another date for that meeting. But let me reiterate that there's no minister, any minister or any government official from South Africa who is in Ghana to come and mediate or be part of the negotiations with MultiChoice and the Ministry of Communication. The meeting was planned way ahead before the whole MultiChoice debate started. So we can't say that the minister was coming to come and solve the MultiChoice issue. No, I think that Ghana is big. Ghana understands the tenets of rule of law. We understand the tenets of globalization. And we know that certain things we don't want to let it degenerate into something else. We don't go to that extent and invite a foreign minister to come and solve a problem for us. We would solve it and solve it amicably. There's going to be a very high level summit next year to do with the BNC that we have with South Africa. And fortunately for us, it's being hosted by Ghana. So the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, will be in Accra, hosted by President John Dramani Mahama, for us to discuss bilateral trade and other agreements that were signed some years back. Yeah. And so the minister feels that this will be a dent if we allow it to go and we allow it to play in the public gallery. In fact, I'm sure that he spoke to the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, our Foreign Affairs Minister, and indicated that we should take it out of the media landscape and bring it to the boardroom and solve. And I'm sure that that is what the Honorable Sam Nete George has agreed on, and everything is proceeding well. We will get a solution within the days and weeks to come. The President has given us marching orders, and he has helped us streamline what we are supposed to do. Like you said, the KPIs, the Nobel KPIs that were given to all envoys. I think that I have my job cut out for me. I have what I need to do, what I don't need to do. I know them. The investment I need to bring in, I would bring them in. And I would do everything possible together with the staff, the diplomatic staff at the commission, to ensure that we derive the best relationship between Ghana and South Africa. I am sure that this is just a phase. This will pass. There will not be reprisal attacks. We would solve this and solve it well. And I think that I've started on a note that is not what I wanted to, but as it is, we have to solve it and move forward. So we would work so hard about getting this resolved, and we are still working so hard with other entities who are ready to come back to Ghana, like ShopRite. We've had discussions with them, so we'll get through it, and South Africa will continue to be a partner. South Africa will be our strongest partner going forward.
Well, it's still News Central here on TV3. When we come back, you can expect more stories included. Doing our take on by the numbers when we look.
Welcome back to News Central, and on By the Numbers today, we're focusing on GNPC and its expenditure because that continues to come up in a lot of reports by PIAC, what oil revenue is used for. And the audit, amongst many things, reveals that between 2018 and 2023, GNPC received over $1.6 billion in petroleum revenues, spending more than $768 million on administration, development, and community projects. These funds were meant to bring schools, hospitals, clean water, and offer essential services to communities across the country. However, millions were spent on projects that never received parliamentary approval. 3 hospitals meant to serve tens of thousands of people now stand unfinished, leaving many without access to healthcare. Contracts were awarded without competition. Money was paid for incomplete or undelivered projects, and some initiatives like boreholes were funded but never built. Let's get into the revelations of this audit report and get straight onto the dashboard right now in terms of what it is that we have here. And so this is a general overview and the irregularities as captured in this audit report. And so in totality, we're seeing $1.6 billion in terms of how much between 2018 and 2023 GNPC has been able to garner. But in terms of this amount, this 1.6 billion, 177 million, which has been categorized as level B funds, because when the money comes, a huge chunk of it is supposed to go into administration and also for the core mandate of GNPC as well, in terms of what it is that they do. And so this then goes into a lot of what we're going to see, which has gone into irregularities and the likes. This level B funds, it takes care of some of these projects, which is supposed to aid communities, amongst many other things. Now, of this amount, we got to know that in terms of the cedi denominations, we saw 4.9 million cedis go into unapproved projects. Then there was a concern of single source project as well, where we saw as much as $34.16 million going into that, and then in excess of 464,000 euros as well going into that in terms of expenditures as well. But we'll get a bit more details for you as to what the situation is. But here are the top financial irregularities as have been captured by this audit report. And we've seen the exact stated amount and then how much went into head office projects, amongst many other things. The foundation, the GNPC Foundation, it received 255 million cedis plus, and then some 21 million US, and then the level B funds, which were overspent, 177 million US. Now, here's what we know in terms of the status of these projects, which are expected to have been undertaken with these funds. Now, at the Nkukor Nkitinkitin Teaching Hospital, the expectation was that a sickle cell and blood center was to have been constructed. Funds were allocated, but that project has stalled for over 2 years. Raises questions as to what has happened to that. Now, over 13 borehole projects were to be put up in Tuba and Sule. These are communities as well. And monies were disbursed. What we know is that these funds, after the monies were disbursed, the project or the boreholes are not in these communities at all. Then we know as well that projects with missing facilities as well as accounting for some 2 million cedis in terms of the monies made available to them to be spent. Now, in terms of questionable expenditure, we know as well that 2+ million cedis went into sponsorship and donations towards festivals. We saw 48,000 cedis plus paid for items, but these items were not delivered. And then CSI development project as well, accounting for some 19.15 million cedis. And if you know PIAC and the work it does very well, you realize that consistently they are discovering some of these irregularities. And then the big question asks is, who is taking charge? Who is ensuring that the right thing is done? Is it Parliament that's supposed to be enforcing these laws in relation to how oil revenue is spent? These and more are the questions, but here are the revelations as captured in the latest audit report. And that's it for you by way of By the Numbers.
Now, an ECOWAS Regional Trade Forum to develop a framework targeting importation of meat products and transportation of livestock across the regional borders has entered its second phase. Deliberations targeted the increase in intra-regional trade flows by 30% and 15% for livestock and red meat.
The West African livestock sector plays a vital role in the agricultural economy of the bloc. The sector significantly contributes to food security, income and employment, especially in rural areas. However, the regional bloc faces challenges, including import dependence and market gaps. Cross-border corridors running through the Sahelian and coastal countries, linking livestock development areas to large urban consumption centers, have also been severely affected by insecurity, road harassment, poor infrastructure, and the mismanagement of livestock markets and abattoirs. In 2018, ECOWAS rolled out the West African Livestock Marketing Support Program, PAGBAO, to strengthen frameworks, intensify quality beef production, and modernize the livestock and red meat trade. Stakeholders from the sub-region have gathered in Accra as part of Phase 2 of the program, which is intended to promote intra-regional trade flows by 30% and 15% for livestock and red meat. Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, underscored the essence of the forum.
We have all the resources to develop the livestock sector. Unfortunately, the sector is underdeveloped, and as a result of that, we depend on importation of meat to supplement local production. The expenditure that is incurred on the importation of meat creates employment in other countries for the youth in those areas. We want to reverse the situation, and we can do that by integrating our efforts. So this is to consolidate the gains made under Phase 1 and also improve upon that.
ECOWAS resident representative in Ghana, Mohamed Lawangana, said gains achieved in the previous phase would be consolidated for a robust livestock policy implementation.
ECOWAS is transitioning from ECOWAS of states to ECOWAS of people, so it's supporting initiatives of such programs, to ensure that despite the security and environmental challenges that we have, ECOWAS is committed to supporting all initiatives to support livestock farming, and also we are going to consolidate the gains of Phase 1 now and see what we will achieve also during the Phase 2.
The success of the forum is expected to lay the foundation for a harmonized livestock policy across West Africa. Stanley Nibleu, TV3 News, Accra.
The Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, has reaffirmed government's commitment to roll out the much-anticipated Nkukor Nkitinkitin program by the first week of October. Speaking to journalists on the sidelines of the ECOWAS regional trade in livestock, the minister disclosed that procurement processes are underway to engage contractors for the distribution of day-old chicks to beneficiary households.
The Nkukor Nkitinkitin initiative, proposed by President John Dramani Mahama ahead of the 2024 general elections, is designed as a major poverty alleviation program targeting households interested in poultry farming. Under the scheme, beneficiaries will receive day-old chicks after the construction of hen coops to accommodate them. The government will also provide support in the form of feed and veterinary services, with the expectation that proceeds from the poultry sales will help households meet their financial needs. Despite its promise, the program has faced public criticism, with some Ghanaians accusing the government of failing to deliver on its earlier commitments. However, Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, maintains that the initiative remains a top priority. The minister added that final beneficiary lists are being compiled, while procurement processes to secure reliable contractors are nearing completion.
Plans are far advanced, and it's likely that at the end of the month or the first week of October, His Excellency the President will launch the program. And all of you will be invited, and then we'll start the distribution to the various constituencies for distribution to the beneficiary farmers. We are now putting the list together, and we are now going through the procurement processes to engage the contractors to supply us with the best. So very soon, it will be launched.
The rollout of the Nkukor Nkitinkitin program is expected to boost poultry production at the household level, enhance food security, and create additional source of income for families across the country. Stanley Nibleu, TV3 News, Accra.
Now, in many classrooms, a child who struggles to grasp a lesson is often mistakenly labeled as less capable. But educational psychologists warn this mindset can dim a child's unique potential and hinder their learning outcomes for years to come. To ensure no child is left behind, a major initiative is underway to rebrand the Ghanaian teacher for the modern classroom.
The Key Education Enhancement Project 2025 is empowering educators with new strategies to make learning more exciting, inclusive, and effective. The program, a collaboration between the Ghana Education Service and the International Community for Learning and Social Spectrum, is a key part of a nationwide continuous professional development drive. Teachers are being trained to identify each child's unique intelligence and adapt their methods to diverse abilities.
What we are promoting today is teachers be conscious of the multiple intelligences of children and identify them through their lessons. So lessons do not have to be just writing and reading. We can have the children enjoy their music, we can have them enjoy their environment. We can even have some children who have very peculiar gifts like comedy, and we can find them all in the classrooms. We are not saying that they wouldn't take their final exams, we're saying they would take the exams, but these kids will not be broken if they are not able to perform in the regulatory or generalized assessments.
A critical new component of this training is the controlled and productive use of AI in education.
The concept that AI does not make people think or it makes them lazy, it is true, but only to an extent. Same thing was said about writing when it started. People felt like when you write, you cannot use your brain to memorize things, and so we shouldn't be writing. But now we write, but we still use our brains. So it's all about guiding them to use it right. So AI is very important, not just in teaching, but in everything we do now, to support us to work smarter, work faster, and be more productive. You get it? So it's the same thing with the teaching profession. The teachers should adapt, parents should adapt, and children or the students should be guided.
Participants were taken through building safer and supportive school communities, the interface between artificial intelligence and the modern classroom, and differentiated learning techniques. The Ghana Education Service is confident this comprehensive training will translate into a more effective and inclusive future for every student.
We want to see them back in the classroom, being more active, and also take the good things that they will learn here to the classroom to help the pupils in the classroom.
While the goal is to unlock the unique potential in every child, it starts by unlocking the potential of every teacher.
Well, and just before we go, the government of Ghana has condemned Israel's attack on Qatar, an action which has resulted in the loss of lives, injuries, and destruction of properties. Israel launched what they claim to be targeted missiles to Doha in Qatar, aiming for the leadership of Hamas. But the justification has been roundly condemned around the world, including Ghana.
That's our bulletin for you. The Czar came to you from our studios here on the John Hammond Street. I am Marwin Aigbeta.
And I'm Kevin Yamano. Next is the afternoon show. Bye-bye from us.
TV3 presents